This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media, sponsors of the Boca Raton Natural Resources Investment Symposium, July 23rd through July 27th. These CEO interviews are meant to introduce our attendees to the companies that will be exhibiting before they go to the conference, which will give them a chance to know more about what companies they want to pay specific time with. I'd like to begin today's interview by thanking our next guest, Sean Roosen, a friend of longstanding and a serially successful mining entrepreneur. Sean, thank you for subjecting yourself to this interview, and thank you, too, for your ongoing support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposiums. It's been a delight to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Rick, and you guys have done a great job of keeping momentum through all forms of market and all forms of weather.
Sean, it's been particularly useful for us to have you for about 10 years as one of the living legends, one of the entrepreneurs who have built multi-billion-dollar mining companies from scratch. And so thank you, too, for that. I'd like to begin today's interview by having you give a brief interview of your prior spectacular success with Osisko.
Well, thanks for that, Rick. Since we started with the Osisko name really in 2002, 2003, we've now topped out with the total value of companies related to the Osisko party has gone past $11 billion in market cap. The first company we had success with really under this platform was Osisko 1 with the Malartic discovery in northern Quebec. We built Canada's largest gold mine and still the 9th largest gold mine in the world, which was a brownfield discovery that we had in 2004. It went on to commission in 2011, and it ended in quite a loud session with a hostile that was launched by my from Goldcorp, and we ended up selling it for $4.3 billion in total consideration to Yamana and Agnico. And on the same date, June 14th, 2014, we IPO'd a new company called Osisko Gold Royalties the day after the conclusion of that sale. And that royalty company was the result that was a spin-co of the Osisko 1 days, which is now a $4 billion Canadian company, about $3.5 billion US. And I think it's solidly the fourth, or tied for fourth as the largest precious metal royalty company in the world with dominantly North American assets. And it's seen quite a bit of success over the years. I was the founding CEO and chairman of that. In 2020, I spun out an asset that we had called the Caribou Gold Project in central BC into the company that we're going to talk about today, into Osisko Development. Some people say there are too many Osisko names out there, but we only had one and we almost lost it when Goldcorp put us into a hostile. So we wanted to make sure that we had lots of Osiskos left to go around as the shareholders in Boca will have a chance to meet some of the group. There are now 5 things called Osisko on the TSX, 2 of them on the NYSE, and nothing called Goldcorp. So, we take a little bit of pride in our survival and our ability to generate returns for the shareholders. Osisko Development really has 3 projects. I'm going to talk about the lead 2 projects today. One is the project in central British Columbia, which is the historic mine site of Barkerville and Wells, which we published a resource on. It has about 2 million ounces of reserves, about another a total of 3.57 million ounces measured indicated, another 1.75 million ounces of inferred on it, and it's one of the largest gold mineralized endowments in Western Canada. Remains wide open. We have over 500,000 acres of real estate there and about 50 miles of trend. To put that in context, the Carlin Trend is 50 miles long, and this is about 53 miles long. So it's a big endowment. It's produced over 5 million ounces. And it's the reason that British Columbia ended up in Canada is because they felt that after the California 49ers started to play out, they went to the town of Barkerville and Wells. And it's been, this is the first time the property's ever been consolidated. And we're pretty proud of that one. And hopefully we get you up there, Rick, to look at it. It's still active placer mining going on in the district. And I like my brownfields. We think of this one as Canadian Malartic, the underground, lots of ounces, lots of big trend. It's a bulk tonnage underground mining scenario with lots of upside, but on a paved road and 45-minute drive from the town of Quesnel, which is 28,000 people, an hour and a half from the town of Prince George, which is a town of about 110,000. So south central BC, very doable. And we're in the we're months away from the final permits right now instead of years. We received a letter from the BC government saying that the permits would be issued by no later than February 15th for construction. We expect the A to be wrapped up this summer. So that's sort of the bigger one that's cooking in the background.
Sean, what can you tell us about the feasibility, the numbers around the economics of the project, the net present value, that kind of stuff?
So we came out with a small feasibility study at 4,900 tons a day on January 3rd that had about $550 million NPV on the project. Only drilled down to about 1,000 feet. The deposit probably goes down to about 8,000 feet. So we've only scratched the surface on this, but we felt it was important to get started. So we think that will be continuing to push that envelope, and the in situ roar certainly took into consideration 2 million of the 3.57 million ounces that are there, and then the other 1.7 million ounces of inferred. We felt it was important to engage in the permitting process early, so we started that in 2019. And we're in the fourth year of it now, and concluding that, because as we all know in this business, there are two types of projects: ones that have permits and all the rest. So that's been our goal as mine builders, and as never intended to sell Canadian Malartic the first time. So we come into these things looking to actually own them and operate them at the end of the day. And if something happens that creates value for shareholders along the way, we'll deal with it, and we'll get our shareholders paid. But we always focus on delivering a quality product and real assets, and operate under the auspices of do no small thing. So that's where we think this one is. We think there's lots upside here, and we've only really explored about 3 miles of the total 53-mile structure. And we're prolific drillers, as you know. We provided about 30% of the revenue for one of the largest drill companies in the sector for about 10 years now. And I think last year we peaked at about 25 drills in Quebec and another 10 outside. And we've been as high as 70 rigs across it. And in Canada, we've been one of the biggest explorers and one of the drillers for many years now on the sector. So we have the ability to get in there, raise money, and bring these projects to value for the shareholders.
Sean, let's move south now and talk about what you're doing at Tintic.
Yeah, very exciting project. This is a project located in Utah. It was previously operated by Kennecott, so the traditional Osisko MO, back to a well-endowed major brownfield mining camp that has a history of producing winners. We've been looking at this project for 13 years. It was first brought to us by the famous Dick Silito, who's the father of all things structural and porphyry targets. Really wrote the first white paper on structural geology around porphyry systems in the mid-90s. This project was operated by Kennecott up till the mid-90s, and it was providing flux to the Bingham smelter. And we're 40 miles south of Bingham, and Bingham is the largest copper and polymetallic mine in the U.S. at this point in time, having between what they've mined and what's left, 57 million ounces of gold, about 35 million tons of copper, over 1 million tons of magnesium, and 550 million ounces of silver. So we're exactly in the same age rocks 40 miles south. The difference between Bingham and this target is that this one does not outcrop, and the erosion level at Bingham, we expose the actual porphyry. We believe the porphyry here to be somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 feet below surface. The reason that this one hasn't been drilled before is because back in the day, everybody was focused on open pit, and bulk tonnage copper mining really didn't catch on until the Australians started to work on block caving and other low-cost methods of underground mining back in the mid-90s to 2000s. So we think this has got a great shot at it, and it's been a target that we've spent 13 years trying to figure out how to own. We actually bought it in June 2022. At the same time, my friend Mr. Friedland and Ivanhoe Electric are drilling exactly on our border on the same geology, and they're quite excited and beating the drum quite loudly on their Typhoon targets. And we own the actual what we consider to be the center of the graben, and that's where we're targeting to drill right now. and we're starting to color that hole on July 15th. It's going to be right in the middle of the cinder cap that we think shows us where the kitchen of this system is. There's been a significant amount of high grade gold off to the sides, and we recently produced a small resource on an epithermal system there that was about 220,000 ounces at a grade of 28 grams, with some inferred ounces, about another 200,000 ounces of inferred. But the interesting thing there is we were able to go back underground and activate the underground, and we took 4,550 continuous chip samples from this new discovery, and the average grade was 74 grams gold and 94 grams silver. So certainly, if it's doesn't prove that there's a big porphyry in the system, but it certainly goes to character, and it certainly shows the quality of the mineralization. And there's a few structures on this one. It's a horse graben structure, and I look forward to seeing people in Boca come by and really understand this one, because all bets will be off if we do hit a Bingham style porphyry. And I will call you, Rick, and select shareholders, and we will go caucus in a very nice hotel and figure out what to do with that particular lottery ticket, assuming if we do have success on that drill hole. So I think it'll be one of the more interesting things that happens this year.
Sean, I look forward to that call. You've done a pretty good job already of talking about what might go right for Osisko Development shareholders. But perhaps a recap in terms of in both locations, which is to say the Caribou in BC and the Tintic in Utah. What can shareholders look forward to in terms of value adds in 2023? What should people talk to you specifically about in Boca Raton?
I think Boca, keep an eye on what's going on with the sort of the larger bulk tonnage thing in British Columbia, which is, I believe, one of the big development assets and probably the next mine permit to be awarded in Canada. It's on grid power, and it's got all the attributes that we look for in a project, which is the doability and the ability to build it within my lifetime, which is important these days. And then obviously what we're doing in Utah, it's a great American story. It's 40 miles south of Bingham, which has been probably the biggest success in mining in the western U.S. from a polymetallic play ever. And we believe that, between Mr. Friedland, Freeport, and Rio, all the other actors that are active in the camp, we're all going after these non-outcropping targets. One of us will hit, we're pretty sure. But there's also been quite a bit of excitement coming around about, where that mineral endowment came from. We've traced it back to the same age as the Bingham mineralization. So I think it really will be an exciting one. And it's also one, if you find yourself in the western U.S., it's a great place to visit. We're a 45-minute drive out of Bingham, out of Provo, and in an hour and a half south of Salt Lake City. And it's a very picturesque place with 23 previous producers on the property. The one we didn't talk about was there's 18 silver lead zinc mines on the property, previously operated at very shallow depths of about 600 feet as well. And we own 17,000 acres here, 14,000 of which is fully patented land, so not BLM land, and another 3,000, almost 3,000 acres that's under lease. So it's a pretty spectacular place. And we couldn't be happier. We spent 13 years, going through the data, looking for these copper gold porphyry systems, and this has always been the one that came back as the top choice. So it's not very often you actually get the top choice that your geologists are all dreaming about. So we're pretty excited, and we're going to share this one, and hopefully we'll get you in there and do a live podcast from the site if we get the discovery that we're hoping for.
I look forward to that. I'm actually quite familiar with the Tintic. Sean, thank you for at least 10 years of support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. Thank you, too, for your successes on behalf of mining investors for a couple decades. And thank you in particular for sharing your story this year with us in Boca Raton. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Rick. And just remember our SUDS program, which stands for Shut Up and Drill, Stupid.